welcome one and all once again to another study session. And as can be seen, today we'll be looking predominantly on the 11th hour call. So the idea today is to show the difference between the 11th hour call and the 11th hour movement. That's the difference between the 11th hour call and the 11th hour movement. And what we'll be doing is to take an in-depth look at Matthew chapter 20, and we'll be reading some verses from the book of Matthew, and then we'll say a word of prayer, after which we'll commence with going into the subject. Now in Matthew chapter 20, beginning at verse 1, it reads as follows. For the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man that is an householder, which went out early in the morning to hire laborers into his vineyard. And when he had agreed with the laborers for a penny a day, he sent them into his vineyard. And he went out about the third hour and saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and said unto them, Go ye also into the vineyard, and whatsoever is right I will give you. And they went their way. Again he went out about the 6th and 9th hour, and did likewise. And about the 11th hour he went out, and found others standing idle, and said unto them, Why stand ye here all the day idle? They say unto him, Because no man hath hired us. He saith unto them, Go ye also into the vineyard, and whatsoever is right, that shall he receive. So when even was come, the Lord of the vineyard saith unto his steward, Call the laborers, and give them their hire, beginning from the last unto the first. And when they came that were hired about the 11th hour, they received every man a penny. But when the first came, they supposed that they should have received more. And they likewise received every man a penny. And when they had received it, they murmured against the goodman of the house, saying, These last have wrought but 1 hour, and thou hast made them equal unto us, which have borne the burden and heat of the day. But he answered one of them and said, Friend, I do thee no wrong. Didst not thou agree with me for a penny? Take that thine is, and go thine way. I will give unto this last, even as unto thee. Is it not lawful for me to do what I will with mine own? Is thine eye evil, because I am good? So the last shall be first, and the first last. For many be called, but few chosen. Now that's Matthew chapter 20, and we read from verse 1 through to verse 16. And we will now say a word of prayer. Let us pray. Great Father in heaven, we want to thank thee for the time and chance that you have afforded us once again, and the opportunity to listen to the study of your words once more. We ask thee kindly, by thy power, to bless us with thy strength, thy wisdom, and thy might, and that thy words may come across with clarity and yet with simplicity. So now we ask thee to put upon us your Holy Spirit and speak to our hearts as we ask through none other but the name of thy holy child Jesus Christ. Amen. Now, in Review and Herald, June 28, 1898, paragraph 2, Inspiration left the following statement on record. The laborers for the master were his official servants, The laborers for the master were his official servants, upon whom he laid the weightiest responsibilities to do his work. And he agreed to give them their wages. From time to time, he added others to the laborers, saying, Go ye also into the vineyard, and whatsoever is right, I will give you. Some were found waiting for work at the 11th hour, only 1 hour before the close of the working day. So here we're told that the servants were official servants. And from time to time, he added other laborers, and that some were found waiting for work just 1 hour before the close of day. Since most of us already have a basic understanding of Matthew 20 and the different calls, we will not spend time in going over much of those details. Instead, we will focus on the finer details of the subject, which are often not understood by many. So now, just to summarize what we've just read, most of you that are listening will probably have gone over Matthew chapter 20 several times already and the different calls. So we will not be looking at that aspect of Matthew chapter 20, though we might do so sometime in the future. But that's not something we're about to do today. We are going to focus on the finer details of the chapter. And that's what we'll be looking at today. Okay? Now, in John chapter 11 and verse 9, Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. So here Christ asks, and most people should know, there are 12 hours in the day, or the day period. So now, as there are 12 hours in the day and 12 hours in the night, making a total of 24 hours. Now, if you look at the Matthew 20 chart, you will notice the bottom section under the red line. Under the red line as 12 hours dedicated to the night section. And that night section is a period without the Bible, or the period before the written Bible came into existence. Because we know that Moses was the one who started the writing of the Bible. And the first book of the Bible was the book of Job. Job was the first book Moses wrote. And then we had Genesis and Exodus and the rest of books. Now, some of you might ask, how could Job be the first book to have been written? And it is not the first book, in the order of arrangement in the Bible. Now, the Bible is arranged in subjects, okay? That's how it's arranged. So we have the first set of books of the Bible, or the books of the laws. Man sinned and he was cast out of the Garden of Eden. And then you had the other books that followed. And so you had Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and so on. And then after those books, then you go into the stories, like the book of Joshua and Judges. And you go on to Samuel and all these books, the Judges. And then you come on to the poetic books, Songs of Solomon, the Psalms, the Proverbs. Those are the poetic books. And then after you end with Songs of Solomon, you go in the prophetic books, which is from Isaiah to Malachi. Then you go after the prophetic books to the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. After the Gospels are finished, then you go in the epistles, the letters. And so after the epistles, then we close off with the book of Revelation. Okay? Apocalypse, the last day event, book of Revelation. And so, because Job is a story of what a man went through for his faith, it is not put as the first book, but it is put in the section with the stories. Okay? And most of you can find that information if you go on the internet and Google how was the Bible arranged, and you will see the information easily, how the Bible was arranged when it was being put together in one book. Now, we're going to continue with this reading. So the night period is a period without the Bible, and 12 hours for the day section, the period with the Bible, making a total of 24 hours. So we have 12 hours in the night section, as depicted there. You see the red line that divides the parabolical day. Okay, 12 hours for the day section and 12 hours for the night section. Okay, and the night section is a period without the Bible. And most of us should know that, who understand this particular study. And as we said before, we are not going to spend a lot of time in this particular study going over Matthew 20 in its primary phase. So this is to look at some of the more finer details of the subject, okay? Now, we're reading from Shepherd Rod, book volume 2, page 236. And inspiration says the following: there are only 5 calls in the parable. There are only 5 calls in the parable. So in the parable, there are 5 calls recorded in Matthew chapter 20. Only 5 recorded there. And those 5 calls recorded in Matthew 20, those calls are happening in the day section, 12 hours in the day. So the calls in Matthew chapter 20 is focusing on the day section, not the night section. And here inspiration is bringing out that if you read Matthew chapter 20, you're going to only see 5 calls there. Okay? First, those who were called early, Israel out of Egypt. Second, those who went to labor in the vineyard at the 3rd hour, the early Christian church. Third, the 6th hour call, William Miller and his co-laborers. Fourth, the 9th hour call, the 3rd angel in his first cry after 1844. Fifth, the 11th hour call, the loud cry of the 3rd angel's message. So to repeat, if you read Matthew chapter 20, there are only 5 calls you're going to see there, no more. And those 5 calls in Matthew chapter 20 captures the day period, the period with the Bible, not the night period. Inspiration continues. As number 7 is used in every one of God's finished acts to denote completeness, there must have been 2 such calls before Israel's time, or before the day period started, because it's only 5 periods in the day. But since number 7 signifies completeness, the 5 cannot capture completeness. So there has to be 2 calls before Israel was called early in the morning. Let me read again. As number 7 is used in every one of God's finished acts to denote completeness, there must have been 2 such calls before Israel's time. Otherwise, it would show incompleteness in the proclamation of the gospel. And Enoch also, the 7th from Adam, prophesied of these, saying, Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints. And that's Jude 14. As Enoch had a worldwide message of the coming of the Lord, his message is the first call. Noah's call is the second from creation. Therefore, 7 in all, meaning perfect, finished, the end of the gospel. So, if you look at the chart, see the circle or the mark in this instant, the mark or on the line section in red, you will notice that there are 7 calls or messages. So if you have your phone, if you can imagine, and someone gives you a call, and they call you to give you a message. So these 7 calls are 7 messages. So it's like someone calls you 7 times to give you 7 different messages. With the first call given after Adam and Eve were cast out of the Garden of Eden, sometime after they were cast out, the first call came. And you can see the line right there in the section 1. You will see for yourself 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the last one. So you had 1, Enoch, 2, Noah, 3, Israel after the flesh, right here. 4, the second Adam. 5, the Millerite movement, William Miller. And you see 6, E.G. White. And you see 7. So now if you go back way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this inspiration stated is the 5 calls in Matthew chapter 20. It does not in Matthew chapter 20 captures the 2 previous calls in Matthew 20, the one of Noah's message and the message of Enoch. It doesn't, okay? And so it only captures what transpired in the day section, okay? So we have 7 calls or messages in total, complete. The evidence brought forward shows that the calls, and inspiration as in open and close bracket, messages. So you receive a call to give you a message, or somebody calling out to you to tell you they have a message for you. And the message that they have for you will tell you what you need to do. So the calls is synonymous with message, okay? Now, you will also notice that there are 2 calls or messages in the night section, as we discussed before, and that there are 5 calls or messages in the day section, making a total of 7 calls. Okay? And remember, these calls came after Adam and Eve were cast out of the Garden of Eden. And so this is after man fell, the Lord made these calls. Okay. So now we should understand this reference. There are only 5 calls in the parable, and it's given the 5 calls in the parable. And it goes on and tell you about 7 being completeness, and you have Enoch and Noah's message, complementing the 5 in the day to make a total of 7. And we should be clear with that. We're moving on. Having looked at the calls, we will now look at the movements. And there are 8 movements in total. Take a look at the chart below with the red stars. So you have a call or a phone call to give you a message. The message that you get will tell you what to do. And so when you get the message means you need to move. And so the message tells you what to do. And the message now cause a movement to be started. So you have the call, which is the message. And the message tells you to start a movement. The movement cannot be started without the call or the message. And you cannot have a message without a messenger. So you have to have the messenger who gives you the call to give you the message. And then once you get the message, you start a movement based on what the messenger told you to do. So we have 7 calls or messages, and we have 8 movements. Now let's look at the stars. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? Now, remember, we said we have 8, but we only counted a while ago 7. We are going to discuss the 8th movement as we progress in the study. So now, we should be clear so far. You have a call and you have a movement. So the call is the message, and the message starts the movement. And we counted a while ago 7 movements. So we have 7 movements counted, but we had said it's 8, because as we indicated before, we're not going to discuss the movement yet. The 8th movement yet. We're just looking at these 7. And we're going to look at this so we can be clear as we progress. Thus, inspiration we go back to. Thus far, we have referred to the calls only, but now we turn our attention to the movements. The start of the first movement is from the time Adam sinned to Enoch's message. So from the time Adam sinned to Enoch's message. So Adam did not have a message. No message is attributed to Adam's time, none at all. But the first movement, however, started from Adam sinned to the time of Enoch's message. Okay? Second, from Enoch to Noah. Third, from Noah to Moses. Fourth, from Moses to the apostles. Fifth, from the apostles to Miller. Sixth, From Miller to E.G. White, 7th. From E.G. White to the end, 7. And the last movement is from E.G. White to the end. No other name is mentioned. And that's the last movement. From the last call to the end, this is the call now, you know. From the last call to the end. So now, from Sister White to the end, that's the last movement. Movement. And remember, the movement is different from the call. The call has to come first. Let's say you get a phone call and someone calls you and you answer the phone and they have a message for you. The message that they have for you is that you need to start a movement. So the last movement is from Sister White to the end. But you have a call after Sister White, but that call after Sister White does not start a movement in Sister White's movement. Let me go again. The last movement is from Sister White to the end. That's clear. But you have a call that comes after Sister White, but it does not advocate any movement then. It's just a call. Okay? And that's the last call. So now, from the last call to the end, being only 1 hour, it proves that there is no time for a new movement. And a new movement would throw the number 7 out of its significance. Therefore, the whole movement must be purified and march on. So now, remember we said before, we have 8 movements and 7 calls. But here inspiration says, a new movement would show the number 7 out of its significance. So this is why the Advent movement has to go straight to the end. We will talk about the 8th movement a little later to explain how that comes in. But for now, from Sister White to the end, that is the 7th and last movement. And the 7th call does not start a new movement at all. It would show everything out of its significance because it's 7 call, 7 movements, and the last call does not start a new movement. I hope we're clear. And we're going to see when then is this 8th movement coming into being that we mentioned. And we're going to look at that a little later. So you can see there with the stars, the movements. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 movements. And each movement lasts for 3 hours. And we have 7 calls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're clear. 7 calls, 7 movement. This 7th call does not start a movement in the time allotted for this last movement. So this 7th call does not start a movement within this time, the 3 hours. It does not. Okay. You will notice the dial at the 11th hour does not have a red star on it. It does not. There's no red star on this one. No movement. And we will talk about why it didn't later. We'll continue. We will get back to the 7th hour call, this one, later, to see when they will eventually become the 8th movement. So we're going to get back to this a little later, because this one did not get a movement. Okay? And we're going to get back to that in continuing. So we can only see that right now, based on what inspiration was saying, the first movement was from the time Adam sinned, and to the second from Enoch to Noah, and so on. We had read that. And so from 7th, from E.G. White to the end. So from E.G. White to the end of time, that movement is the last movement. You only can have a call, a 7th call in the movement, but that call cannot start a movement. It cannot. Okay? So we see that each movement gets 3 hours to work. We can see that clearly. Each movement gets 3 hours to work. Okay. The last call, the rod message, right here, which is the 7th call. You can see the chart below. Chart is right here. The 7th call comes in the time allocated for the 9th hour SDA movement. So that the 7th call, the rod message, is just a new call or message within the SDA movement. So this call comes in the time allotted for the Seventh-day Adventist movement, because the Advent movement go from 9, 10, 11, 12, because 9 and 3 equals 12. So there can be no new movement within that time period. There's only a new call, and the same movement is purified and moved on. Okay. So the SDA movement is given the 9th hour to the 12th hour, 3 hours of work to the close of day. But they haven't failed to do their work. The Lord had to send a new call, message, the rod message, to take over the movement at the 11th hour and finish the work just 1 hour before the close of day at the 12th hour. So the Lord sends a call to take over the movement, because the entire movement would have failed had not the Lord sent this call to take it over. And I hope we're clear so far. We're moving on. See the red line from 9 to 12 for the SDM movement. So that movement is going straight to the end. There cannot be a new movement. And as we said that before, and everybody should be very clear with that. Okay. The 7th movement is the Seventh-day Adventist. And the rod message, or call, is the very last message within that movement. Okay. So now, there is no time for a new movement. A new movement would throw number 7 out of its significance. We're clear with that. We're moving on. So you will notice that the 7th call is not a new movement. There's only one movement from the 9th hour to the 12th hour. The 7th call, the rod message, does not start a new movement. It is intestine, or inside the 9th hour SDA movement. It will also, or should be noticed, that the 7th call, this one right here, the rod message, is the very last call or message to human beings. There's not another call all the way to the close of day. It is the last call or last message in the last movement. And it's the same movement that goes straight to the end. It is just that it is purified. We are continuing. Inspiration says in the Leviticus, accordingly, this reformatory association, intestine to the Seventh-day Adventist organization, intestine inside the movement, embraces an all-inclusive scriptural fundamentalism, and it is necessarily endowed with constitution and bylaws embodying the governmental principles and system of the fourfold succession of the Exodus movement, the Davidian monarchy, the judges, and the apostles, as illuminated by the spirit of prophecy in the following passages, revealing that God is the center of authority and that men of his appointment are the administrators of his law. And so here we see that the seventh call is not a new movement. It is inside, intestine to the SDA organization. So it's a call within a movement. You should also notice that on the 7th hour clock, call clock dial, there is nothing written on it. Let me go. You will see a name that is written on all the other dials. So you'll see the first Adam right here. You will see Enoch. You will see Noah. You'll see Israel after the flesh, 12 tribes, Israel. You will see the second Adam. You will see E.G. You will see, Miller. Miller. You will see E.G. White. And you see right here, it's blank. Nothing is written on it. No name. Okay? No name is written right here. You see the seventh call inside the seventh movement. And we are going to spend some time a little later looking at those things. So those, you will notice that. So all the other calls and the movement that was started, because this is the indication of the movement, who the Lord used to start the movement. But this call does not have a movement. So no name is on it to say this person started the movement, because there's no movement to start. The movement is the SDA movement that is purified and move on. So because there's not a new movement, only a call, but each movement before had a name, and each movement was given 3 hours of work. But this call does not start a movement, and as such, no name is allotted to indicate no start of a movement, because it's not a new movement. Okay? It's a call that takes over the movement, because the movement became corrupted with wheat and tears, briars and thorns. And so the Lord makes this call for the movement to be taken over. But no name is written on the dial to indicate a movement. No. We continue. Inspiration. God has never had more than one movement in existence at a time, and it could not be otherwise now, for Christ cannot be divided. See 1 Corinthians 1 verse 13. God's church is well marked in every generation by obedience to present truth. God has never had more than one movement in existence, and it could not be otherwise now. It doesn't. This is why on the clock dial, you don't see a name. Inspiration continues. Just as the name Philadelphia fits only one church organization, and only one of the chariots. So the name Laodiceans can logically fit only one of the chariots and only one denomination. One. So you have a call within a movement. Okay? So that movement, the last one, really has two calls within it. The first by Sister White and the second by Brother Houtif. But the last call, the message, the messenger there does not start a new movement. For he, this is God, has only one church organization at a time. He only has one organization at a time, one at a time. And the last one goes for 3 hours. So the 7th hour call is not a new church. God only has one church movement at a time. God does not and never has two churches at the same time. Well, we can call ourselves church people, and we are church people. We are God's true people, but we are not an independent church from the last SDA church. God's people will take over the movement, and it's the last movement that will triumph to the end. And so you see, the call comes right here. But this call does not have nothing written on the dial like the rest of these to indicate a new movement. No, this is why it is left blank. Because once anything is written on these, it indicates a movement, and each movement is given 3 hours. And so nothing is written right here because there's no movement to start. They're already in this last SDA movement. And so it is a call, and the call comes with a message that the movement will be taken over by those who give heed to the call. Some people teach that there is an 11th hour movement at church right now, but sadly, they are gravely mistaken in their understanding. There's only one movement right now. But we do have the additional 7th hour call, which is a shepherd word message, the very last message inside the SDA movement. And it is the last call, incidentally, for the entire world. So once the movement is purified, that call goes straight out into the world, and the great multitude will come into a purified movement. Okay? So God has never had more than one movement in existence at a time, and it could not be otherwise now. Okay, we're moving on. So this is the call. And some people are saying we are now having an 11th hour movement, our church, independent of the Seventh-day Adventist church. That's what some people are teaching. But inspiration is wise too. God is wise, extremely wise. And we're going to see how the Lord works. So on the 7th hour call dial, there is nothing written on it because we're all Seventh-day Adventists in the one SDA movement. Since there's absolutely nothing called an 11th hour church now, there's nowhere in the message that says there is an 11th hour church now. And since God only has one movement at a time, when did the 11th hour message came? Because we have the 11th hour message, you know. So because we have the 11th hour message, some say we are in the 11th hour. No. We have the 11th hour message. And the message opens for us what the future is going to be like. We understand the mark of the beast. the Latter-day Confederacy, the fall of the Western Alliance, and many kindred end-time prophecies that we have access to know that the Lord has opened to us. And through the message, we can go in the future. Through the message, the message has opened for us the future to know what will become of those who are sealed and what will become of those who are not sealed. So through the message, we can actually see what's going to happen in the future. But we are not actually in the 11th hour as yet. We have the 11th hour message, the same message that will go to the world. But we are not as yet in the 11th hour. So those who are teaching that there is an 11th hour church greatly misunderstand the prophecies. Now listen what Christ says right here. Revelation 3 verse 20. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come in to him and will sup with him and he with me. So you have the word stand at the door and knock. And if you open the door, he said he will come in. Inspiration says, we are not right at the 11th hour. Or I should say, we are right at the 11th hour. However, we are not in the 11th hour. So now, inspiration is making it clear. And here, Brother Houtif makes a statement. He makes clear that at, not in. So we are at the 11th hour, but we are not in the 11th hour. Just like when Christ said, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man open the door, I will come in. So if you look at the judgment and the harvest cover, you can see what inspiration says there clearly. Inspiration makes a potent point. And what inspiration is bringing out is the fact that this is shortly before 11. You will notice, if you see the clock, the message is before 11. You see shortly right there, the dial? Okay. So we are at, but not in. Some have asked, did not the rod message say that there is an 11th hour church now in existence? Did not the message say that there is an 11th hour church now in existence? The answer is no. There's nowhere in the message that said there's an 11th hour church now in existence. And we will now go more into the question. Some have asked the question, and this is the reference that they will go to. Symbolic Code, Volume 1, Number 6, page 10, written in 1934. The question was asked, are we given the 11th hour message? This is the question was about, the message. Are we given the 11th hour message now, or will it not be given until after the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9? That's one question. Second, as the angel that is to light the earth with his glory, early writings 2:7-7, already come. Answer. If the questioner will consult the chart on page 244 of volume 2 of the Shepherd Rod, he will observe that the angels of Revelation 7 and 18 are represented as coming at the 11th hour, at the 11th hour. Now, let me just go quickly and show you something on the chart and come back what he's talking about. You will notice that number 7 is placed right here, at. He doesn't put it the 7 right on the dial, He put it somewhere just right here. it is placed. This is 11 right here, and he puts it right here. Okay? You see somewhere right here, the message comes somewhere in the period right here, and he sticks it right here. But we're going to look some more what he's saying. If the questioner will consult the chart, he will observe that the angels of Revelation 7 and 18, and we're going to look at the angels that he's talking about, are represented as coming at the 11th hour. That's the angels, you know. You have two angels there, and he's going to explain that the angels are represented as coming at the 11th hour. And as we are in the sealing time, it proves that we are now in the 11th hour. No, some read the statement and they say, see, we are in the 11th hour, not at the 11th hour, but in it. Okay. The reading continues though. Concerning the angel of Revelation 18:1, and you see, they were asking about, are we given the 11th hour message? This is a message, you know. And inspiration says it proves that we are now in the 11th hour. Continue. Concerning the angel of Revelation 18:1, with whose glory the earth is to be lightened, we do not claim to have as yet all is light, nor do we believe that the earth is at present lightened with his glory. We do maintain that a large part of that light has already been revealed. We're talking about the light, the message. Okay? We're in the 11th hour by the message. Okay? And he continues. And that as soon as the 144,000 are sealed, and the church is purified by the separation of the sinners from the midst thereof by the men with slaughter weapons, as described in Ezekiel's vision, the earth will then be lightened as the 144,000 go forth, proclaiming the message to all nations. And this is a reference what some people hold to. We're going to come back to this. There are over 111 hour statements in the shepherd's rod message. Over 111 hour statements or references talking about the 11th hour in the shepherd's rod message. And all of them say we are either at, just before, or in the pre-11th hour, just before. There is only one, and we mean only one statement that says we are in the 11th hour, and it was written in 1934. That's the only statement that says in. So no, is it that that one statement is contradicting all the others? We need to find out. No. In 1936, however, the symbolic code clarified what time we were in. It made plain that we were only in the 11th hour message. To repeat, we are only in the 11th hour through the rod message or the call, but not physically in the 11th hour as yet. Let me give you an example. In Matthew chapter 10 and verse 19, Jesus Christ was speaking, and this is what he said. But when they deliver you up, take no thought how or what he shall speak, for it shall be given you in that same hour what he shall speak. So here Christ, through the message he was given, took the disciples and brought them into the future through the message, not physically. He was opening the future to them through the truth he was telling them, through the message that they were going to be delivered up, that they should take no thought what they should say. But he told them, when the time came, in that hour when the clock struck, they would know what to say. The Spirit would go upon them then. So what the Lord did, he brought them in the future through the message. So they were in the future through the message, but not physically there as yet. So we are in the 11th hour through the message. We know about the Latter-day Confederacy, the mark of the beast, the time of trouble, Jacob's trouble, all those things, but we are not physically in the 11th hour. Not yet. The movement has not been purified. Now, inspiration says this. In 1936, we are indeed now in the 11th hour call. You see that? We're in the 11th hour now, but we're in it through the call, through the message. The message has taken us right to the end of time, but only through the call or through the messages. So when you study the message, you can go into the future through the message. But if you do not survive Ezekiel 9, you will not be there physically. If your name is not left in the Lamb's Book of Life, you will not be there physically. But no, you can read the call or the message, and you can see what is going to happen in the future. So we are indeed in the 11th hour through the call. I hope we're clear. But it's not that we're in the 11th hour because the clock has not struck there yet, but we are actually in it through the message. And just as the Lord demonstrated to the Jews of old, inspiration continues in Symbolic Code, Volume 2, number 10, page 5. The above references do not only plainly show that the loud cry of the third angel's message is yet future, but they also show that before it begins, there is to be a reformation among God's people. So this tells you the message is opening up the future to us, that there is going to be a reformation among God's people before the loud cry commences. Those are all what the 11th hour call, our message, is opening to us. And so we are in the 11th hour through the call. I hope we're clear. So now, this is what the Symbolic Code clarified in 1936 and said, when we talk about the 11th hour. Now, I want to show you something again. If you look at Matthew 20, you will see right here, you see this red line? Right here. And this is the 11th hour. In track 1, page 1, you will see pre-11th hour extra. And so this clock dial has on it, you see the section divided. Over this side would be the pre-side. Over this side will be the post side. And so just like this, you see the white and the black. You have the pre and you have the post. So the message comes on the pre-11th hour side. So if you see the angels right here, 1 and 2, standing at the 11th hour, you see the clock dial right here as a pre-side to it and a post side to it. Pre-11th, where salvation is offered to everyone over this side. Once 11th hour strikes, this is the purification of the church. It signifies that the church is purified and there is no more probation for those in the Adventist church who are not sealed. Only the sealed ones will go over the other side from 11 on. Likewise too, when the loud cry goes out, anyone that is not sealed before the clock strikes 12 cannot go over this side. It means this is the post, everything is done. So no, this is why now over this side, all the action is taking place now, pre-11th hour. So some people see the angels standing right here and think that these angels are doing their sealing work in the 11th hour. No, they are doing it pre-11th, the sealing angel. And this Revelation 18 angel is now post from 11 on. So you see inspiration puts, and you see right here, we have to put the line so you can see it clearly. There's a line to show you right here. Now let's go on. So inspiration was answering the question, are we given the 11th hour message? And it says it proves that we are now in the 11th hour. The message, that was a subject, you know. And he goes on to say, we do not claim to have as yet all is light. This is the Revelation 18 angel. So it's talking about Revelation 7 and Revelation 18 are represented at coming at the 11th hour. And this is the message. Because the earth is not lightened with his glory and the sealing is not finished. So now some people say that that's going on and we are in the 11th hour. Inspiration says no, we're dealing with the light, the message, the revelation. Light, revealed, light, message. That's a question. Message. We're dealing with message. See the word message? See the word revealed? See the word light? See the word lighten? See the word light? And so he's explaining 7 and 18 are represented as coming at the 11th hour. He's dealing with the message. So see it right here. The 7th call, our message, has to come pre-11th. I hope we're clear. And you see how the dial is structured. We have the pre-11th over this side. See pre-11th, just as we have pre-12. Once 12 o'clock strikes, probation is closed. It is done. No one that was over this side can expect any salvation to follow them over this side. It can't work. It is darkness. It is done. It is finished. Likewise, no SDA from over this side can come over this side. Their probation is closed. And so inspiration shows the message comes over this side, pre-11th, and this is where the angel is operating. This angel is operating now over this side, after 11, the loud cry. I hope we're clear. But we today are in the 11th hour through the message, because we see already what the future holds through the message. We continue. Inspiration says in volume 9 of the symbolic code, number 1 through to 12, page 8 to 9, the last hour, the 11th, the most monumentous in history, is about to strike. And you see, he said about to strike. So when he talks in symbolic code early on, and some people say, well, we are in the 11th hour, inspiration comes after that statement and says, no, it has not struck us yet. It is about to strike. So when inspiration spoke earlier, we are in the 11th hour through the message, but the actual hour itself, the actual time itself, has not reached as yet. When the billions of earth are to hear the gospel's final plea and mercy's farewell cry to unrepenting sinners, and you see, all you will see inspiration depict pre-11th, just before, at. And you see the 12, once it strikes 12, that will be the end of day. But we are not there yet. We are just again before 11. And this you see, he has Seventh-day Adventists, judgment of the dead, of the living. And you see the section now what you have here for the living. And you see the 11th hour section. Once it comes right here, the Lord is dealing now with the aspect for the living. And you see the phase over here for the dead. The phase right in here for the living. One SDA set of people, Seventh-day Adventists. Not a new movement. There is no Davidian Seventh-day Adventist church recorded in nowhere in inspiration. There's no such thing. No one can show you anywhere in the Rod message a Davidian Seventh-day Adventist church. That's not what it says. You have the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Association. And let me give you an example. Let's say you have an apartment building. And in the apartment building, there are only senior citizens allowed to live in the building, old agers. But let's say some of those senior citizens decide to go start an exercise club. Okay? So now you have a set of seniors who have an exercise club. Let's say another set of seniors decided to start a motorbike. They have motorbikes that they buy, and they have a motorbike club. The motorbike club can call themselves the Motorbike Association. So they're all one set of people in the apartment, you know. But those who have motorbikes, they call themselves the Motorbike Association to distinguish themselves as those who ride motorbikes and they live in the apartment. The people who do the exercise, they might call themselves the Fitness Association. They're trying to keep fit. So the word association just means a group of people who share the same way of life. So this is why we're Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Association. We are an associate of people who believe the Davidian message. And so as a result, we in the Seventh-day Adventist Church are distinguished by our acceptance of the message, and this is why we are an association. But we are not a new church. We associate as a people around the message, but not a new church. We are in the one movement. I hope we're clear. Now in continuing. So we see the seventh call does not start a new movement, but the seventh call takes us in the future to show us what is going to go on in the 11th hour. That's clear. That's what it is saying. Now we continue. And we see, and Christ says this. Christ tells us where we are in time. He says, and when they came that were hired about the 11th hour, they receive every man a penny. This is Jesus Christ himself, you know. And Christ is saying they were hired about, not in. And you see, inspiration puts it right about here. Right about here. So that we're clear. And inspiration is going to continue. This is after 10 on the symbolic codes. So sometime you see, so let's say 10 was about right here. Sometime after 10 going around. So now after you pass 10, inspiration is showing you you're heading up now towards 11. So now over and over the Lord is showing you when he started work of gathering. And this is another brighter. This is after 10. You can see all of the rod charts shows that the message came before the 11th hour struck on the dial. This is another one. You can see it right here. And here inspiration put 10. See number 10? And this is going all around now to head back right around to 11. Show you when the Lord is working the field. the first fruits, that the first fruits made stand on Mount Zion when he started the work. We should be clear. And this is Shepherd Rod, Volume 1, Pocket Edition. We continue. It's right there. Very clear. This is after 10. And it is in the one movement. So there's no 11th hour church. It doesn't exist. It is one church with an association of people in the one movement. This is showing just before 11. This is the same thing. You see the line right here? Right down the line, if you see. And this is why the message is called the pre-11th over this side. And once 11 strikes, no one from over this side who are not sealed can live over this side. Their probation is closed. And once those who live on this side reject the truth, they cannot have life over this side. Probation is closed. In all the charts on the next slides, you will see that Brother V.T. Houghton placed the rod message as coming just at or shortly before the 11th hour strikes. This, as we said before, clearly show before 11. And you can see on this symbolic code right here, where the red is pointing, this shows you 11. You see? 11. And this, it says, the lightning of the earth right here. This is when the Lord is light, when God's glory. This is showing the lightning of the earth at the hour of 11. Right at 11. You see now, he's putting now that the earth is going to be lightened. Lightning, 11, the earth. Now the next question. Is there an 11th hour church now in existence, which is totally separate from the 9th hour Seventh-day Adventist church? That is a question. Is there an 11th hour church now in existence, which is totally separate from the 9th hour Seventh-day Adventist church? That is the question. Some say there is an 11th hour church now in existence, and it is totally separate from the 9th hour Seventh-day Adventist church. Is that true? No. Inspiration says this. For he, God, has only one church organization at a time. So Inspiration is saying there cannot be two churches, two ordained church at the same time, two separate churches. God cannot have the Baptist church and the Adventist church at the same time as his church organizations. It doesn't work like that. Listen, this statement now in White House Recruiter, page 33. Unparalleled, therefore, is the urgency that every 11th hour church member now quickly and suddenly brace himself against the enemy's effort to deliver a knockout blow. Some say, see, there is an 11th hour church. That's not what he said, you know. He didn't say there's an 11th hour church. He said 11th hour church member. Every 11th hour church member. No. What does it mean? In track 7, page 77, he says, the fact that there can be no new organization, the fact that there can be no new organization clearly shows that our work must be done in our SDA church. So no, some say, listen, this statement is contradicting the next statement. the previous statement. Because this statement is saying there can be no new church organization and our work must be done, or this call has to be working in the SDA church or the SDA movement, because there cannot be a new organization. But some say, how is it then that he seemed to be saying there's an 11th hour church, because he said 11th hour church member? Sorry. Is there an 11th hour church? And if there's an 11th hour church, always saying that there can be no new church organization. Some say that's contradiction, but it is not. It is in perfect harmony, and we're going to see why. It continues. We trust, therefore, that our desire to worship in the church of our choice, even though we have been by her, even though we have by her been deprived of our membership, and that for no other reason than for accepting more light on the third angel's message. 17, will not be denied, and that our presence will not be forbidden. So inspiration is saying we have to work in our SDA church because there's not going to be a new organization. And so how then could he be saying that every 11th hour church member, some read this statement now and say there is an 11th hour church, and this is a statement that they go and hold on to. Now, let me put it like this to you. He says every 11th hour church member, 11th hour church member. Now, let me say, if I said unto you about the SDA church members, every AY church member should brace themselves for, you know what I said? This is what he said before, every 11th hour church member. Which church is this? Which church is he talking about? Every 11th hour church member. If I said to you about the SDA church members that every AY church member should brace themselves for a knockout blow, or if I said to you, every Pathfinder church member should brace themselves for a knockout blow, or if I said to you, every Bible working church member should brace themselves for a knockout blow, if I said to you, every evangelist church member should brace themselves for a knockout blow. I'm talking about the one church, you know. This is the Seventh-day Adventist church. If I said to you, every married church member should brace themselves for a knockout blow. If I said to you, every single church member should brace themselves for a knockout blow. If I said to you, every missionary church member should brace themselves for a knockout blow. If I said to you, every 11th hour church member should brace themselves for a knockout blow. This is just like when you say the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Association. The association is just the people who associate together by as a virtue of the fact that they believe the Davidian message. All those who are Pathfinder in the church, it's not everybody in the Adventist church is a Pathfinder. And so if you're addressing Pathfinder members, you are addressing them alone. If you're addressing AY church members, because it's not everybody is an Adventist youth. You are dealing with Adventist youth. Not every Seventh-day Adventist is married. So if you're addressing married Seventh-day Adventists, you're addressing them. If you're addressing single Seventh-day Adventist church members, you are addressing them. If you're addressing those who believe the 11th hour message, you are addressing them. But you're dealing with these people in the one church, the Adventist church, because there's not a new church. Some people read the statement and think Brother Houteff is talking about a new 11th hour church. No, he's talking about the one church, but he's addressing a group of people in that one church. And those are the people that accept the 11th hour message. Every 11th hour church member. So do not, though, Inspiration says, let anyone fool you into believing that the recruiter is calling you out of the Seventh-day Adventist denomination and into something else. Such allegations and insinuations come only from those who are enemies of God's 11th hour, God's 11th or judgment hour truth. So when Inspiration says every 11th hour church member, he's saying every Davidian Seventh-day Adventist members. He's not saying there is an 11th hour church independent of the Adventist church. He's saying, do not let anyone call you out of the Seventh-day Adventist denomination into something else. Such allegations and insinuations come only from those who are enemies of God's 11th. And this is what he said, 11th hour church members. He's not saying there's an 11th hour church, He's saying there's members who accept the 11th hour message, and he's talking to those people that they should brace themselves for the enemy's effort for a knockout blow or the judgment hour truth. And who are therefore neither his servants nor his friends. God's servants get their orders from God, and friends are ever cautious not to push their friends into accepting propagated falsehood, especially when the scriptures are under consideration. And so Inspiration is making it clear that the 11th hour, it is a message, and those who accept this message, they must know that the enemy is going to be relentless in knocking out the message. Inspiration continues. It is devoutly to be hoped that God's people will now see that it is of no importance whatsoever as to whether heaven's 11th hour harbinger, heaven's 11th hour harbinger, the recruiter, bears this, that, or any other human stamp of approval, but that it is all important that it bear the divine stamp. So you see now, heaven's 11th hour harbinger, the 11th hour. And so Inspiration continues. Of still further importance is the truth that the 11th hour call finds its laborers standing idle in the marketplace. The church. Which church is that? It is one church. Doing nothing. Their excuses being, no man had hired us. In view of these facts, it is manifest that the 11th hour servants are not made up of the ministry, not of those already at work, no more than were the servants of the previous calls. White House Recruiter, page 46. So the servants that will make up this group of people are not from the ministry. Unparalleled, therefore, is the urgency that every 11th hour church member now quickly and suddenly brace himself against the enemy's effort to deliver a knockout blow. This 11th hour church member is the people who accept the shepherd message in the Adventist church. They're members of the Adventist church. It's a one church. So Inspiration is not saying there is an 11th hour church independent of the Seventh-day Adventist church. No. Inspiration is saying there are individuals in the Adventist church who have accepted the 11th hour message, and those individuals need to know that the enemy is going to put all his effort to overthrow the message. And those people are the people he calls member. And the reason why they're members, they're not leaders, they're laity, they're not of the ministry. And they are considered to be idlers. This is why Inspiration singled him out, that he's dealing with the member. Okay? And it's those that have accepted the message. So Brother V.T. Outif was actually addressing the 11th hour, the shepherd's rod, believe in present true church members. And I hope we're clear, because some read that statement and run off and think that they're going to start some Davidian Seventh-day Adventist church. And there's no such thing written in the rod. There's nowhere in the shepherd rod's message that there's anywhere called any Davidian Seventh-day Adventist church. You have the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Association. And we are an association because we associate together as a group of people who believe the Davidian message within the Adventist church. And we know the Lord is going to purify the movement, and the movement is going to move on because the message that came to tell us that the movement is going to be purified, and we call it the pre-11th call. Inspiration continues. Seventh-day Adventists turned from the Minneapolis General Conference in 1888 for their wilderness wandering until the guilty ones should ever repent or die. May God grant that we, the children of those who have repeated the history of that people, Testimonies for the Church, page 160, be admonished by their mistakes and heed the call of the 11th hour. The 11th hour, you see? We Seventh-day Adventists must heed the call of the 11th hour. This is the message. And this is why Inspiration was addressing every 11th hour church believing member. Since the people knew not that Jesus was the Son of the living God, Jesus realized that to flatly tell them so would only make them the more prejudiced. He, therefore, charged the apostles to do the same as that which we today are charged to do. Not to say flatly, we have the truth, the message of the 11th hour. Instead, we are to teach the divinely revealed Bible truths, thus giving our hearers the opportunity to draw their own conclusions, to make up their own minds. And who are the hearers? The hearers. These are the Adventist people. If they are honest searchers for truth, the Father himself will reveal in their hearts that this is the 11th hour message. And this is why no Inspiration was saying, when you accept this message as a Seventh-day Adventist, you must know as an 11th hour believing person, you must brace yourself for the enemy's effort to deliver a knockout blow. He was not saying that there's an 11th hour church separate from the Seventh-day Adventist church. This is why the name is called the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Association. No, this is not to say that God's true converted people are not his church. When you look upon the woman in Revelation chapter 12, that pure woman he considered to be the wheat, is true people within the Seventh-day Adventist movement. But he still gives every man a chance to accept him and be saved. But if those who do not want to accept him as their Lord and Savior, he cannot force salvation upon them. But those who accept him, those are the ones he look upon as his church, his true people. In that sense, we are a church. We are God's true people, but not independent of the Adventist movement. No, and I hope we're clear. We continue. The 11th hour call, in reality, is similar to that of the 9th. The 9th hour call is repeated with additional mention of the corruption in the churches. Also, light and force is added to it. Why stand ye all? Why stand ye idle? The laborers were hired from the marketplace. The market must refer to the church, from which God calls his laborers for service. Those hired in each instance were idle. The significance is that every message that has ever come to our world came not by those in high position in the church. It was delivered by humble men of whose services the church leadership thought they had little need. So, the 11th hour church member is the humble ones, the laity, the ones who should brace themselves strongly for the enemy's effort. But it's not an 11th hour church. I hope we're clear. So now, again to repeat, if I said to you about the SDA church members, every AY church member should brace themselves for a knockout blow. Every Pathfinder member should brace themselves from the enemy's effort to deliver a knockout blow. All Pathfinder members should know I'm addressing only them. And if I'm addressing AY church members, they should know I'm only addressing them. If I say every Bible working church member should brace themselves for the enemy's effort to deliver a knockout blow, every Bible working church member should know I'm only speaking to them. If I say every evangelist church member should brace themselves from the enemy's effort to deliver a knockout blow, all evangelists should know that I'm only addressing them. If I say every married church member should brace themselves from the enemy's effort to deliver a knockout blow, every married person should know I'm only addressing them. And if I say every single church member should brace themselves for the enemy's effort to deliver a knockout blow, the single people should know I'm talking to them and them only. And if I say every missionary church member should brace themselves for the enemy's effort to deliver a knockout blow, the missionary church member should know that I'm only speaking to them. And if I say every 11th hour church member should brace themselves for the enemy's effort to deliver a knockout blow, we should know that we are dealing only with those who will accept the 11th hour message. And they are Seventh-day Adventists in the one church. This should be simple to understand. But those who want to run off to say they're starting a new movement, no, they greatly err. No, it's not that we don't are participant in a particular movement. And that word, if I say we are actively engaged in a movement to carry the message to the church, that word movement is not the same as to say we are taking over the SDA movement at this time. No, 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 that's not what we're saying. From the 9th to the 12th hour is only one movement. That must be clear in everybody's mind. We as Davidians would not only be recreant to our trust, but would also be passing by on the other side, allowing our beloved Seventh-day Adventist church, our beloved Seventh-day Adventist church, to drag in the dust, our brethren to be lost, and the world around us to perish for lack of knowledge, if we did not bestir ourselves to warn the church of the oncoming danger. This is a one church, our beloved church. And so you have the Davidians within the church, the one church. So the 7th hour call is not a new church. God only has one church movement at a time. God does not and never has two churches at the same time. We are therefore the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Association, not the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Association Church or Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Church. So even if some might say, why do some people address themselves as church? Yes, people can address themselves as anything they want. But as far as Matthew 20 and this parable is concerned with the Bible, it does not say there are two churches that fit themselves in this parable. We are talking about this. Whatever people want to call themselves, it is independent of this. And so what this is saying, there is no two churches in the movement, none. And there is no 11th hour church at this particular time, none. Anyone wants to run off that, that's a hook that the enemy has taken them off on. And so in continuing, this is what we see clearly, that we are in the pre-11th, the line that runs right through that dial over one side, and we have not crossed the side of this side as yet. Inspiration is clear. This is where we are, pre-11th, over this side, as we could say, just before. And once it strikes 11, all over here, probation is close to. So, to us, Seventh-day Adventists in particular, the meaning of what we see around us should be window clear, making manifest that the time has now come for every church member, you see now, every church member to engage in proclaiming the three angels' message. There are moreover thousands of pastoral posts now awaiting to be filled by both graduates and undergrads of Seventh-day Adventist ministerial colleges. So this is now the rod message, inviting those who have gone through training to come and be part of the work. And this is going out to Seventh-day Adventists, everyone. And for those who accept the message, they would become 11-hour church members. But it's in the one church. So let no one with such qualification any longer be found either standing idle or engaging in secular occupation while the Lord's work languishes. And what? No. This is an Adventist Activities letter. And this is what it says, dear church member. This is all part of the quotation, you know. Dear church member, you doubtless know that in the last few years, our churches have been invaded, as it were, by a group known as the Davidian Seventh-day Adventists, whose literature is entitled The Shepherd's Rod. So you see, you have the 11th hour church member, and you have those that are not the 11th hour church member who are being warned, are being spoken to, not warned, being spoken to about these people. So when Inspiration says the 11th hour church member of the brace themselves, you have some who decide that they don't want the 11th hour message. Though we as a people have done everything in our power to keep them down and out, yet in spite of it, they continue to grow and to stay in our churches. And so the enemy's effort to deliver a knockout blow cannot succeed, because not because of anything in the individual, but because of God himself. We continue. Let everyone remain at the post of duty, as though all the work of God rested on his shoulders. God has forewarned that everyone must remain in the church where he belongs, regardless of what may happen to his church membership. It is not our names on the church books that saves us, but the keeping of the truth. And so we can see who the 11th hour church members are, those who accept the truth, the 11th hour message. So what will happen when the clock strikes 11th hour? For the answer, look at the chart below. This is Mount Zion at the 11th hour. This is what Inspiration shows. And you see right here, Mount Zion at the 11th hour. You see the lamb? And you see the 12 stars? These are the 144,000. So when Mount Zion is brought into being, it will be at the 11th hour. And those who say that they have an 11th hour church now, at what time then will the kingdom be set up? Where on the clock dial? Because each movement, each call is depicted on the chart in Matthew chapter 20. So if someone say they have an 11th hour church now, somewhere, Where on the clock dial is the kingdom church? There's no such things. Inspiration says we get to Mount Zion right here. 11th hour. This is when the sticks becomes one. There the king with the 144,000, the Leviticus becomes fully operative. And so you see it you have right here again. And this is the Leviticus of Davidic and Seventh-day Adventists. You see the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the sticks of Ezekiel's vision become one in the Lord's hand right here as the clock strikes 11. Again, clear. See the same thing right here. White House Recruiter reads as follows. The fact that this parable of the kingdom thus stands fully open to view now for the first time since Christ uttered it is indisputable evidence in itself that the stroke of the 11th hour is about to be heard even to the 4 points of the compass. This event will signalize the great fact that this last group of servants are disclosed to view to the whole world. Glorious disclosure. And you see when they're disclosed, the lion steps out and his people behold his glory and the world beholds the glory. Glorious disclosure. You see again right here. Clear as inspiration can make it. We move on. The 1 hour of Revelation 17, verse 12, in which time the horns of the scarlet-colored beast receive powers as kings, is a period from the 11th hour call to the end of this world's history. From, inspiration clarifies, the 11th hour to the 12th allegorical hour. So once 11 strikes to the 12th allegorical hour, that's the time, the 1 hour, you see right here? The time for the great multitude. And once this section comes to an end, nobody can find salvation over this side. Probation is closed, as none who lived over this side could find salvation over this side. Probation is closed. The 1 hour of Revelation 17:12, and it tells you, is a period of the 11th to the end of this world. Very clear. When the two sticks become one. We will now move on to the 7th call message to see when this call, this is the only call that did not have a movement for itself. And so inspiration did not, like all the previous one, have anything written right here. Something is written here, 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 nothing is written right here. No name is on this dial because it is not a movement. There's nobody that can come and write any Davidic Seventh-day Adventist church. Inspiration didn't write anything on it. It left it blank because it is not a movement. It is a call, not a movement. And inspiration was specific too, to give the association the name association, not church. I hope we're clear. But when then will this call become a movement? No. There are 8 movements in star. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to look at this right here. There are 8 movements in star and 7 calls in circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are the calls. That is 7 times 3 equals 21. 7 times 3 equals 21. So each movement lasted for 3 hours. But there are 12 hours in the day and 12 hours in the night. 3 hours are unaccounted for to make the 24 hours or complete the 24-hour day. Now on the chart, you'll see that this section is left blank. Nothing is written in here. You see 1 start here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nothing is in here. 1 did not start here. This is blank. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is blank. We see that? Okay. Why? 3, 7 is 21, not 24. And there are 24 hours in a day. 12 hours in the day section, 12 hours in the night section, making a complete 24 hours. Okay? That should be clear. We continue. Shepherd Rod, Volume 2, page 237. It reads as follows. Now look at the clock dial. From the 3rd hour in the dark section, and we're going to go to the chart, the fall of Adam, opposite to the 3rd hour, the light section, we see the 2nd Adam, Christ crucified. Look again, and let me carry it there so we can look, and then we come back to the reading. So you can see right here. This is a type. The fall of Adam, the 1st Adam, the 2nd Adam. See right here? The 2 Adams. Adam fell, Christ came and redeemed man. Right here, type and antitype. We have Jude, or Enoch prophesying the Lord cometh with 10,000 of his saints. Antitype up here. This is the type. Noah by flood. Sister White prophesying that the Lord is going to destroy the earth in the future by fire. Type, Israel after the flesh, going out of Egypt. Where's the antitype for Israel after the spirit? The antitype would be over here. But we're just looking at this. Type, 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 type. Type, antitype. Type, antitype. Type, antitype. This right here has to have an antitype, because the type is right here and the antitype is over here. But if you have the antitype over here, probation closes at 12. And remember, right here is blank. So we have the type, and we're going to look at what transpires in the antitype over here. We go back. Now look at the clock in the dial from the 3rd hour in the dark, the fall of Adam. Opposite to the 3rd hour in the light part, we see the 2nd Adam, Christ crucified. Again, look at the 6th hour in the dark part of the clock dial, Enoch prophesying of the coming of Christ. Opposite to the 6th hour of the light part, and there we see Miller also prophesying of the same event, coming of Christ. This is one of the reasons why God allowed Miller to proclaim the coming of Christ in 1844. Now look at the 9th hour, Noah predicting the end of the world in his generation, and opposite the 9th hour in the light part, we see E.G. White prophesying of the end of the world in this generation. And that is where this generation began. And at the 12th hour, Israel after the flesh going out of Egypt, and opposite the 12-hour sunset, we see Israel after the spirit, the finished product. That's right at the 12th there in the day section, going out of the world, Egypt. Therefore, There is no question but that what the fall of Adam, the prophecy of Enoch and Noah came at the hours as shown on the chart. So you see now, inspiration says, type, antitype, type, antitype, type, antitype, type, the star. We're looking at the stars now. At the 12th hour, Israel after the flesh going out of Egypt, and opposite, the 12th hour sunset, we see Israel after the spirit, finished product, going out of the world, Egypt. Ah, it is done. Now look at the clock dial. All right, so you see that. So you see the 4 type in red at the bottom, pointing to the antitype on the other section. And as we said before, you should see it. Type, antitype, type, antitype, type, antitype. But if you have 4 type, you have 4 antitype, which is 8. 4 type, 4 antitype. 4 type, 4 antitype. Okay? And if you have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This one is not included because it's not a movement. And it cannot be a movement because it's operating in the one movement from here. It cannot become a movement until right here. This is the type, this is the antitype. Right here. Now we're going to look at something. So we see type, antitype. Okay? 4 type in red. 4 type in red. Israel at after the flesh going out of Egypt, pointed to the antitype on the other side section to modern Israel going out of this world. And so we see that right here. The 7th call becomes a movement after the 12th hour. This set of people that took the work from right here, they never had a movement for themselves. They operated in the movement that was the Seventh-day Adventist movement. So the Lord purified the movement and let them finish the work. But this call did not get a movement for themselves. When the clock strikes 12, they now get a movement in right here. So now inspiration says, after they become a movement, they will occupy the first 3 sections in the antitype. See this chart where the star is. You see it? Then the Lord can write something on the dial to indicate the movement, the author of the message. But you cannot put anybody's name on the dial because all those are on the dial indicate a movement. And this is why there's no Davidian Seventh-day Adventist church movement right here. We are an association. So anybody say they're the 11th hour church is spoiling this because the Lord did not put anything on the dial because there's no movement. Or once something is written on the dial, it indicates a movement. And so that will finally make 3 multiplied by 8 equal 24 hours. Each movement getting its own 3 hours. So we have 3 hours here, 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 3 hours here. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3 8s are 24. Because 3 7 is 21. 3 hours is missing. And inspiration continues. So see the chart. Look at where the red star is. You see this? And in the type, you have Israel after the flesh, Israel after the spirit. And see Revelation 22, 11, Revelation 20, verse 2, in the antitype. So you see Genesis 1 in the type. This is right here. And you see it's pointing to the Garden of Eden that God created first. And man failed and was cast out. Revelation 22 and Revelation 20, verse 2. What are these referencing? And he laid hold on that dragon, the old serpent, which is the devil, and and he that is holy, let him be holy still. Revelation 22, verse 11. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. See the 1,000 years right here? Right here. Revelation 20, verse 2. And this is why you see right here, look at this line. You see it? Follow me. It's going up, right up, and it's pointing to right here. This is the 1,000 years. So if you go back in Genesis, you hear in the beginning, that's Genesis 1. You see inspiration of it right here? The earth was void and without form, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. So just as the earth was in the beginning, and God says, let there be light. God created light. The earth will go back to that state for 1,000 years. You see Genesis 1? And then God created everything. The Spirit of God moved upon the face of the deep. And God said, let there be light. And God created and brought forth the earth. So then God brings back the earth to the condition it was in at the beginning before anything was done. And Satan is bound for 1,000 years right here. You see? Right here. And this is a Revelation 20 verse 2 reference. See it right here. So this Genesis was what God did in the beginning. And man failed and was cast out. Then after the 1,000 years is finished, you have right here. You see this little gap? Right here. This is the 100 years, or the little season that the wicked comes up for. And everybody right here, he that is unjust, let him be unjust still. There cannot be any probation to every time right here, from right here. He that is unjust, once the clock dial finish over here, you see blackness over here, probation is closed. Just as it was closed up here for Adventists. It's closed right here. For the world now, and this is 1,000 years. And this now will be a little season. Right here. So in the beginning, in Genesis 1, there is darkness before God said, let there be light. And in the end, darkness for 1,000 years. The wicked will reign for a little season after that, making a total of 1,100 years. Then be burnt up. See the chart below, the red line. You see this right here? Right here. This is the little season. After the wicked are raised, they will live for a little season, 100 years, Isaiah 65 verse 20. Then comes the pronouncement, he that is unjust, let him be unjust still. He which is filthy, let him be filthy still. He that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still. Okay, and you see it right here. See the red line. It will be observed too that the beginning of the clock dial is offset. Right here a little. You see the line right here? The Lord started a new beginning. It's not joined to this. You have the little season. The Lord finished them off right here. and they don't come over this line. You can see they can't come over. This is drawn. No one from this little season, the wicked, comes over this line. The Lord offset it to show and close it off. They're not coming in here. So you go back and see. It's offset from the dial, a little season, space between the beginning and the end, showing that the millennium at the end of the dial is not connected with the creation in the new beginning. Right here, they're closed off. And I hope we're clear. We continue. You should see right here. This line is drawn, and the Lord finishes off with the wicked. So it will be observed too that the beginning of the clock dial is set off from the end of the clock dial, set off a little. The little space in between the beginning and the end, showing that the millennium at the end of the dial is not connected with the creation at the new beginning. So right here is different. Only the meek will be over this line. No one else comes over. The clock dial represents the approximate 6,000 years. So you see the clock dial right here? This is when the 6,000 years finish, right here. And this is 1,000 millennium. And so this section, once it comes right here, the 6,000 years of probationary time must come to an end. And nothing from this side comes over this line. So the second coming of Christ plus 1,000 years for the millennium, making 7,000 years plus the 100 years of Isaiah 65 verse 20, totaling 1,100 years in all. From right here to right here. Totally finished. This section, you see the star, inspiration as this right here. Fold out. The call of spiritual Israel to possess the land, the 144,000 and the great multitude going out of Egypt, the world, and they now possess this section. And so they inherit the 8th stage, the beginning of a new order out of the old, and the only 3-hour period on the chart that can accommodate the kingdom fully restored, the first dominion, the Garden of Eden, is the first one representing the world, first before sin entered, and finally after sin is purged away and is no more. And this section and inspiration left it blank, because now the meek inherit the earth made new. And so Genesis chapter 1, what man lost, man now finally gets back. And 3 times 8 is now 24. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 3 hours for each movement equals now 24. And type and antitype perfectly fits in place. And so you see that there is a type in the night section and the antitype in the day section for every movement. The last movement at the close of the night and the beginning of the day section is Israel after the flesh at the 12th hour early in the morning, and across in the antitype is Israel after the spirit at the 12th hour at the close of day. What the first Adam lost out in indulging of self at the tree in Eden, the second Adam gained back in crucifying self on the tree of Calvary. Thus he not only became the savior of Adam and his race, but of Eden and every divine institution of creation. But he, Christ, did not accomplish this, the work of restitution, at the 3rd hour, or at the 6th hour, or at the 9th hour, but rather he finishes it, the vineyard work, from the 11th hour to the 12th. That's the vineyard work he finished now, within the 9th hour period. When? So then he used the 1 hour to finish the work in the period or the movement of the 9th hour people. Through the power of the gospel, he is succeeding in recreating, transforming 144,000 sinners into saints and saviors, who become the nucleus through whom the Lord begins the 11th hour, the restoring of the kingdom period, which is completed with the resurrection of the righteous dead at the second coming of Christ. And in its recreational aspect, recreation is accomplished at the end of the 1,000 years. That is not the created first dominion, or that the dominion that Adam had, the number 1 dominion. Rather, it is the recreated, restored first dominion, number 8. That's when now that call, the 7th call, finally becomes a movement to gather in all the saints that participated in all the other movements into one finest, glorious restoration of everything. The 8th, the new order, out of the old order, a new earth, a recreated earth, created out of the old earth, and regenerated, redeemed, new Adams, recreated out of unregenerate, pawned old Adams, new people created afresh. You will see that there is a type in the night section and an antitype in the day section for every movement. And you will see the last right here, where the meek from all the previous movements gather right here for the first time. And this call is the only one that tells what is going to be accomplished. And every saint upon planet Earth, all saints will have to become part of this movement when it becomes the 8th. Because in the kingdom, when we get to the promised land, the redeemed of all ages will be resurrected to come into the kingdom, to go on the chariot, to go home. And so all peoples of all ages will have to become part of this movement. This is the greatest call that has ever come to mankind. And the Lord did not put anything on this dial because it's not a movement yet. Right here, though, when it comes down, the city will be the new Jerusalem, and the saints will have a new name, and the Lord will put on the dial what he sees fit to call the holy place that we will inhabit. God is good. Thus, with the close of the 12th hour, the hands of the clock will have come to a full circle from the beginning of the world in period number 1 to the 7 successive redemptive restitutional stages back to the same 3 hours. And you see, let me go back and show you. So from right here, all the way around to right here. And once man fell, before things was recreated right here, once the clock stopped right here, God was working to redeem man, and he stopped right here. Right here, redemption work was finished. And this is a recreated order. When God gives man back again, the earth made new. Behold, I make all things new. Signifying a new order, a new creation out of nothing before that. And you see, but this time, numbered 8. Renewed race out of old order. As the 8 saved in Noah's Ark were the beginning of a new renewed order out of the old order then. Thus God vindicates his original creative wisdom in creating and placing all things in the Garden of Eden, the first dominion, in the first 3 hour period, which could have been should have been and would have been the one and only period with its beginning and without end. So if Adam never sinned, that period would have been the only period. It would have been the only one, and there would have been none other. But then, because of sin, God has to do something. But then by recreating, restoring all things, every divine institution, and by placing them back in the Garden of Eden in the 8th or new earth period out of the 7 preceding earth periods devoted to the old order under sin. So all the periods before it were sinful period. But this new recreated order, the 8th, God does something that has never been done before. God makes the earth made new. And all the redeemed that live all along here, God redeems them, makes them brand new, and bring them here. And so this message is the greatest message, and it will effect the greatest movement, a recreation of all of Adam's children who fell under sin. All. And may we all be determined to be there. And so, may God bless you all, and may we have learned something from the study today. And hopefully, we can take this up again and look at some other elements of the subject that we weren't able to look at today. We will close here in prayer. Great Father in heaven, we bless and honor your name, and we ask you to save us in your kingdom, and that we too may be there when the roll is called up yonder, is our prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
My shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures.